Uh, Hello. How's it going? Are you all seeing Are you seeing these? Oh god, okay, hold on. Hi. Um there. Okay. We start with Scuff because why wouldn't we? Hello. How are you all doing? Yes. That was so for some reason now they're gone. Yes. Those were the Fuki avatars. Fuki being the the avatar service thing that connects to Discord. So if you are collabing with someone and you're all in the same Discord call, it will grab people's avatars or profile pictures or whatever they set, and then you can place them on your stream as sources. So that everyone will appear and it will do the whole, oh, when they're talking, they can have a different image or it'll bounce and light up and things like that, right? So it's a good thing. And I had those set up for the RPG stream that I was doing when I was running the RPG like 3 weeks ago. And for some reason, just now, it decided to start loading and start grabbing the avatars, even though I'm not on Discord. So, yeah. Oh yeah, so that reminded me essentially to turn off those things. Okay, welcome. Yes, we start with Scuff. And yeah, I did not turn on... I started the stream. I was thinking I need to do a go live post. I need to do go live post. Do the go live post. So I started stream, went onto Blue Sky to do the go live post, and then I realized, hold on. I didn't start VTube Studio. I didn't start StreamerBot. I didn't start any of those other programs that I have to start when I start streaming. So hooray! We do the Scuff. But yeah, welcome. Vessel, congrats on first. I made a post-it note to have like a start stream procedure and like an end stream procedure and all that because there's too much for me to remember. Wednesday we had a mix of D&D sessions, the World of Dark Eye. Oof, how'd that go? My changeling Mirage got a level up, now she's a Warlock level 5. Hooray! Tech is costing up. There's so much to like, whenever you want to VTube, you have to start so many programs. Like, at the very least, you need to start OBS and VTube Studio, or whatever your program of choice is for running your avatar or PNG or whatever, right? Then I also have StreamerBot running, because that thing is a lifesaver and it does so much, but that's another program. And then I have SpeakerBot running for text-to-speech stuff, which a lot of things. I used to have more programs running, but it's like I'm not bothering. Okay. Yes, so today we're going to Numenera. I had hinted at this before. I had analyzed the game before. And that was apparently my third session of TTRPG design, where I looked at Numenera. Huh, okay. And I'm gonna homebrew. I'm gonna change this game completely into something I would like to play in the world of Numenera. Or if I want to use this system, how would I look at it? So that's what we're doing today. So let me oh, see, I need to start VLC media player because music. Need to get some music going. Okay, so let me change to Okay, for some reason, it's really not liking... Okay, Fugi is just going nuts. But, alright, hold on. Aha, there we go. Okay. Alright. Okay. Let's look into this. So, this is a big mess. That's because this is like 4 layers on top of each other. Okay. So, let's have a quick review. The wall of notes. Indeed, the wall of notes. But, you know, layers. Layers in this are super useful. Okay, so let's see. So the cipher system. I don't think the cipher system in it of itself is necessarily bad, but I think the cipher system is a bad fit for Numenera, which is a bit ironic because Numenera came out first, and then out of that, the cipher system was removed from the setting, was generalized a bit, and then released as its own thing. And now you have the cipher system, its own. There are books for it. There is like an updated version of it already out. There are many setting books or setting ideas and blah, all of that out for it. There's been a whole bunch released for the cipher system in itself, and I think the cipher system is fine. It's serviceable. It is trying to be an everything system, though. That is why it was able to be extracted out of the setting and be made into its own universal system, right? You cannot really do that if you don't have a kind of everything system. Oh, one moment. Okay. So, sorry about that. Right. So, for some systems, right, it is easier to extract them out of a setting than it is for others. And the cipher system was remarkably easy. Right. So that's because it is a bit of an everything system. So Monte Cook, little bit of background. Monte Cook, the person who envisioned Numenera and then at the end created this game, is an amazing and very prestigious designer. He was one of the 3 lead designers on D&D 3rd edition. So that was the team that took 2nd edition and turned it into, well, the D20 system, essentially, that we got. When was that? Early 2000s? Somewhere around there? Right? So he like a lot of the design prowess that went into 3rd edition also went into Numenera. And he is also the creator of one of the most celebrated and award-winning settings called Tallus. And oh, is that that is the really really long city, the Maori city, isn't it? Hello, Vitalina. How are you doing? How goes? I hope you had a good week. Rawr indeed. We're doing some TTRPG design again. Okay. So, what was I talking about? Right, so Tallus. So Tallus, like, basically, Monte Cook understood D&D. He really, really understands D&D, and he made a setting specifically deconstructing a lot of the tropes and assumptions integrated into D&D that a lot of us don't think about. Like, we look at D&D nowadays, or a lot of people look at it and think, oh, it's an everything game, right? As in, it's kind of universal. It's like we can play frickin' cyberpunk in D&D. We can play this and that in D&D. We can play all sorts of things in D&D. And kinda, right? D&D was indeed designed. 3rd edition eventually became an everything system with a D20 system. And that is kind of still preserved in 5th edition. But D&D also has a very heavily implied setting, or not implied setting, but like implied baseline assumptions of how a setting needs to look and function. There's a lot of deconstructing that you can do. Things like the prevalence of magic, for example, right? What kind of fantasy it is, right? It's very high heroic fantasy. That is not what most settings are, right? So Monte Cook then took that and designed Tallus, which is a heroic fantasy D&D setting where he looked at the rules and said, well, this boils down to this kind of setting, and created it. So he has a lot of good ideas for settings, and he really understands Dungeons and Dragons. And that can be seen in Numenera. Numenera, the reason I want to do this in the first place is because I adore the Numenera setting. The Numenera setting is essentially Earth 1 billion years in the future. 1 billion with a B, right? Years in the future. So that's a really, really weird world that is incomprehensible to us and completely unfamiliar to us, right? So the idea is in the intervening billion years, 8 great civilizations have risen and fallen. And this is now the 9th world, is what they call it. Now, what does great civilization mean? Us right now, 20th century, 21st century humans are nowhere near one of these great civilizations. So one of them, these civilizations, for instance, was the center of an intergalactic empire. One of them did something called stellar lifting, where they manipulated the sun so that it wouldn't blow up into a red giant and swallow the earth in 1 billion years. One of them was not human. It was aliens who came and settled on Earth. One of them did things to time and gravity and just used them as like fun side projects, like a science fair project, right? So that's the kind of level of great civilization that we're talking about. And the whole setting essentially runs on, now in the 9th world, the people have a roughly medieval level of technology on their own. And are discovering everything around them. Hold on. Oh, hey, Demon Lord Okami. Hi. Haven't been on Twitch in ages. Yeah. No, really. But I've been here a few times in the past. Can you still do the hat curtsy? Oh, yeah, hold on. Let me check. Let me check. I can. It gets activated by a raid, but let me see how I can do that. on its own. Where do I play the... Can I test the animation? Does that work? No, hold on. I set a hotkey for it. No, I am actually interested now. Oh, hold on. There we go. That thing. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I was trying to remember the hotkeys. I know I said a bunch of fuck. I'm glad you like it. But yeah, how are you doing? I hope you had a good week. Thanks for reminding me that I had hotkeys set for various of these animations and expressions and such. All right. Doing well. Hope you're doing well yourself. I'm doing okay. I'm keeping busy with work. But yeah. Hold on, I had a... Oh. Sorry for getting you off track. No, it's okay, it's okay. That's the nature of streaming. Don't worry. I'm not at a university or anywhere holding a lecture. I'm doing a live stream, so that is to be expected, and it is welcomed, really. I was just looking for a towel because I have a bottle of Oreo Coke on my desk, and it is sweating and leaking condensed water. Have you ever had one of these Oreo Cokes? They do taste Oreo Coke. So it's one of the newest promotions from Coca-Cola. Where they partnered with Oreo and they created a zero sugar Coca-Cola that tastes like Oreo. And I have to say, it really does taste like Oreo. Like the whole cookie. When you drink it. It's black magic. So yeah. Hi, Cross Planet Cleric. How are you doing? That's wild. It is. It is pretty wild. It is, of course, full of chemistry, as my mom would say. But it does actually taste like the cookie. I don't know how they did it, but their flavor scientists must have a lot of experience by now. Yeah, it's a promotion. Hello. Yes. How are you doing? It's a promotion they're doing, and apparently it's not forever. Right, so they're bringing it out. They have a whole batch, and they're like, taste it while it lasts. So for now, the Oreo Coke exists, and it looks like it's supposed to be one of the first in a series because they titled this whole thing Coca-Cola Creations. So the idea is probably bring out the Oreo Coke first. They liquefied some cookies. It really does feel like that. And then if it sells well, they might partner with others and do other, I don't know, candy bars or something like that. Who knows, right? But yeah, I've been drinking this, and it's, you know, it's like drinking Oreo cookies. It's really weird. But yeah. Yes, so I was introducing Numenera, right? So we're doing some TTRPG design, TTRPG homebrew, I guess, today. But for that, we first need to know what we're working with, right? So it's talking about Numenera, and yeah, the setting of Numenera. So the thing I want to keep, the thing I want to design for. Like I said, so Earth a billion years in the future. 8 great civilizations have come and gone, and the important thing is they have all left behind things on Earth, right? They have left behind their buildings. They have left behind weird physical effects and chemical changes to the Earth. They have shifted around the continents. They have done time travel shenanigans with the moon. They have colonized Venus and Mars. Things like that, right? So the people who are alive on Earth right now, or right now in the settings right now, right, have medieval level technology, but they are essentially scavengers. They are kind of sort of living in a post-apocalyptic world. Um, but the pre-apocalyptic civilizations were all so technologically advanced that it's essentially what they were doing is essentially magic, right? So you get things like weird sci-fi stuff that looks like magic, so it's a science fantasy setting. And it is full of the weird, and it's amazing. So I really, really love the setting itself. But like I said, I think the rules there can be a better fit. Like Warhammer? Not actually no, actually no, not like Warhammer. Um because in Warhammer is very much, I mean, yeah, Warhammer is also science fantasy, okay, fair enough, but it's a very, very different feel. Advanced enough technology isn't distinguishable to magic. Yes, exactly that. So the Arthur C. Clarke quote, uh, what is it actually? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Yes, at least to the outsider, exactly. And that is what this setting runs on. So a lot of the basic idea is it is all technology. But it is technology that is so advanced that the people alive on the world during the time of the game have no hope of truly ever understanding it, right? It's like, why can this wristband open a portal? I don't know, but it can. And like in lore, it is based on physical principles somehow, but to the people using it, it looks like magic, right? And the idea is basically that you have all of these bits and pieces of lost technology that cover the entire world. Heck, even like the mountain ranges are not natural. The mountain ranges are just big structures that were built. Even all the sand and earth and dust is no longer truly natural. It is ground down bits of old technology and buildings and such that have now over thousands of years become sand and earth. Uh, Plants and animals very often are bioengineered or come from different dimensions or things like that, right? So you have plants that cause time travel because that's how they were created or engineered. You have 2D animals, like actual two-dimensional animals that have no thickness, right? You can only see them when you look at them from the side. Things like that, right? A lot of really weird things where you go, yeah, okay, I can kind of see the sci-fi roots behind it, right? You can say, yes, it's a 2D animal. That's a mathematical concept. Ooh. But then if you actually encounter it in game, the way it's framed is like, yeah, no, this is magical, right? We cannot explain it. Um, so that's the feel of the Numenera setting. And I would like to adapt the Numenera system, the cipher system, to be more integrated into the setting, not focus on things I believe the cipher system is misfocused on, and instead focus on things that help tell stories in the Numenera setting. Right? So that's what I'm looking at right now. So there are a lot of good ideas in the cipher system, but some things that I believe there's too much that we don't need, and some things that feel like aren't there. DP, you like card games as well? Sorry, is that card games? Yeah, I. Hmm. So, like card games, do you just mean card games that we play with a normal deck of cards, or card games where you buy special cards and such like Magic? I used to play a lot of Magic, not anymore. Um, like tabletop TCGs. Yeah, so like I said, I used to play a lot of Magic. Uh, but I stopped. Like it's okay, it happens. Um, but I stopped because it just started becoming too expensive, and at some point it's like having to cart around all of these cards is eh. Save files, Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, Carstone, Balatro. Okay. Um, so I also play a lot of other tabletop games. I'm very big into board games, and I do design, or I used to design some of them. I am right now. They're just on the back burner. So tabletop games that includes card games, of course, right? Board games, card games, those kind of things. So yes, I do like them as well. They're just a lot more difficult to play because you actually need people who can gather at a physical place together in order to play those games most of the time, right? Very few board games you can actually play over the internet, as opposed to role-playing games, which are much more easier to run online with a bunch of people. Would you be willing to playtest one? Huh. Are you designing one right now? I mean, I can't promise anything because again, like I don't know if I can find players. That's the biggest issue, right? Finding players and then finding a time where everyone can play together. Um like I'm always willing to try new games, to check out new games, time and money permitting. It's just, the players that's the biggest issue. I do have one I've made. I just need some more playtesting at this point. I mean, yeah. Like like I said, yes, I would be interested to playtest. Um if I can find people. Right, that's the thing. That's the big limiter. If I can find people, yeah, sure. I'll slot in a time. I'll see if I can slot in a time to playtest. But I can't promise if may I add you on Discord? Yeah, sure. Uh, in fact, hold on. Discord. Aha, there we go. So you can find me here, and then you can use that to chat, and then yeah, I will see what I can do. Um, but yeah, I also know the pain of finding playtesters. There was one card game I playtested in a language meetup, simply because it's a simple card game, and there's a lot of people there. Oh, you know, awesome. Joined. Okay, it's not my personal Discord, by the way. It's a group Discord I share with some other people. So do be aware of that. But I do have my own channel on there, or you can just, I don't know, talk to me on the normal chat, open chat, etc. Yeah. Okay. So um okay, Numenera system, right? So very quick overview, how the heck does the Numenera system actually work? So the Numenera system is a D20 system that is very much streamlined. So you can definitely see the pedigree of D20 system design that Monty Cook has, right? So if you understand D&D 3rd edition, and then you look at Numenera, you can very clearly see how this was born out of a, I don't want to say homebrew, but you can very clearly see that this was heavily based on D&D 3rd edition, and then a lot of the design ideas went into how can I streamline and simplify the D20 system, more so than how can I create something from scratch. Again, I don't know the design process. I don't know Monte Cook well enough to know how he designs. I don't know his team. So I don't know how much he consciously said, let's take the D20 system and streamline and simplify it, rather than he wanted to design something from the ground up, but because he had been working on D&D so long that a lot of that just unconsciously made its way into his design, right? I don't know, but I do know from the finished product that there is a lot of D&D in this. So how does this work? You roll a d20, and you have to beat a target number. Right. So far, so good. This target number is based on the level of a difficulty between 1 and 10, and then the target number is 3 times that. Right, we're gonna get back to that thing. So if you have a difficulty 1 task, or level 1 task, or monster, or whatever, the target number is a 3. So you have to roll a 3 or higher to beat it. If it's 5, then you have to roll a 15 or higher to beat it. If it's something like 10, then you have to roll a 30 or higher to beat it, which is impossible on a d20. So what do? Instead of getting a bonus on your roll, what you're actually doing is you're lowering the difficulty of the task. And you do this with various abilities, with skills. So when you have a skill, it lowers the level of the task by 1. If you have assets like a tool that can help, etc., again, that lowers the difficulty by 1. You can put in effort, right, which is a mechanic in this game where you spend points in order to put in more effort into your task, and that also lowers the difficulty. So if you have something like a level 8 task and you go, I cannot do this, then you say, oh, but I have this tool here, and I have 2 levels in the skill training here. Like if you're trying to climb a really difficult wall, then you say, okay, I have a rope. That's an asset. I am specialized in climbing and the climbing skill. That's 2 more levels. And then I'll put in another level of effort, right? So that's 4 helps, four pieces of help, so to speak. And then they lower the level from 8 to 4. And that means you have to roll a 12 or higher, which is not bad, right? And that's how the system basically works. That's the core resolution. So a lot of things are based around spending your points, your pools to lower difficulties of checks, and yeah, regaining these pool points throughout the day and such. So that's basically how what is going on here. So that's this over here. Then there is the character system. How does character creation work? Character creation is a lot of people, when they first introduce Numenera and say, what is Numenera? This is the first thing they mention. And it's cool, but it's also not central, ironically. So how does character creation work? You basically have, I am a something, someone who does something, right? So you have a descriptor, which is some sort of adjective, right? I am a clever, or swift, or tough, or strong, or whatever, right? And then type is essentially your class. Is there music? Okay. And these all have fancy names, so a lot of it goes into flavor, right? This book, the text, etc., is very, very flavorful. So you have things like glaive, and delve, and jack, and nano, and then the focus back here is some special superpower that you have. Rides the lightning, howls at the moon, shreds the walls of the world, talks to machines, right? So you can have something like, I'm a clever glaive who rides the lightning. And this is how you introduce your character. Oh, 1 second, I need to open a door real quick. Okay. And this system is nice. It's very flavorful. but it feels a bit squandered. It really feels a bit squandered. So what Monte Cook does in this system that pops up all over the place is he makes a very powerful distinction. He builds a very thick wall between mechanical things and narrative things in the game. Which to me, that's the antithesis of my personal style of design, right? So Monte Cook very clearly, I think he possibly wanted to design the Cypher system and design Numenera as the first vehicle of it, right? So the more I think about it, the more this seems likely that he wanted to design an everything system, but realized, due to his long time in the industry, that just bringing out yet another universal system, TM, won't draw as many eyes. He needs a powerful, flavorful vehicle to sell the system and get eyes on his game and on his company. And that he created Numenera for that. Which is why there is such a powerful divide between the system, which he wanted to keep isolated and like on its own, able to be just extracted very quickly to become a universal system, and the setting, which setting and the narrative focus, which he is only quote unquote using to sell his brand, kind of, right? Because all of these, like, when you think about, I one of my 3 defining character parts is a descriptor. I get to choose, is my character clever, is my character swift or tough, and then all of these things are only mechanical things. Like, if you're clever, that means you get like 4 points of intellect. If you're swift, that means you get 4 points of speed. If you're tough, that means you get 4 points of might. Done. Basically, right? And then you get a training and some skill. And all of the other things, all of the flavor pieces are just kind of there in the text. It's like, oh, by the way, you should also think about your character's personality a little bit, right? So that this whole system feels very squandered. Looking at the lens of using Numenera as a vehicle to sell the Cypher system or introduce the Cypher system to the world, however, it makes a lot of sense, because the more integrated you make the narrative and the mechanics, the harder it is to extract them afterwards and to sell the Cypher system on its own, right? The more work you have to put into it, and the more pieces might break. So that's what this feels like. And then another piece is the ciphers, which is single-use abilities, basically. So ciphers are all the pieces of lost technology that the PCs can find, and they act kind of like single-use powerful magical items, right? Like potions or a single-use wand or scroll or something like that you can have in a medieval fantasy RPG. Here they are sci-fi objects, and the game also says, oh yeah, but it doesn't mean that the object was originally designed with this in mind, right? So it would be akin to like saying, oh, a medieval person finds a laptop battery and uses it as an explosive device, because that person doesn't know what a battery is, they don't know what a laptop is, they don't know any of the like plugging things in or blah, right? They don't know any of that. They have only found the battery, and they know if I poke this and throw it, it'll explode, right? So that's the idea. So a lot of these ciphers are really just people finding bits and pieces of this discarded technology from the previous civilizations and just using it for whatever purpose is most obvious at the moment, even though that may not have been the designed purpose, was probably not the design. Okay. So, what do I think? What do I dislike about the cipher system? So, it has a very rigid combat system. And this is the thing that led me to believe that this is really just a D&D knockoff, or a knockoff is a bad word for this, a D&D evolution, like everything system, right? Because a universal system must have combat because that's what people expect. So my game must also have combat. So it has exactly one system besides the usual character advancement system that every game basically has, and that is combat. It doesn't have anything else. Nothing. Zero. Nada. Right? Then also it clings very much to rigid details and a lot of ability descriptions and such. So the game is very, there's a strange dichotomy going on in this game. The game says, "Oh, we're not going to use exact measurements right, for distances and such, unlike D&D, right? We're not going to do all of this. We're going to have fixed damage, and we're only going to do blah, very simple, coarse numbers, right? The levels only go from 1 to 10. We don't actually have like DC 15, 16, 17, 18, and then 19. No. We only get 15, and then the next step is 18, and so on, etc. Very coarse, gridded system. And then it goes, but if you're using this ability, you can use it for exactly 1 hour, and it costs this many points, and it deals that much damage, and you can run this much in 1 round, blah. It's very, very detailed all of a sudden. And that, so you have a very loose framework, and then you're trying to put in very detailed individual pieces, right? And that's a big mismatch. And then it's missing other systems. And the problem with this I have with this, and again, this is where again I see that the mechanics and the narrative portion are completely divorced from each other, is that when you look at Numenera, the rulebook, and you read it more than once, right? So several times in the text, it says, "Discovery is the soul of Numenera." This is a game about exploration, right? The goal of PCs is to discover the lost technology, right? This game is about finding out about, like, discovering old stuff. You get experience for discovering things, right? Discovery drives the game, all of this. Discovery. There is nothing in the mechanics to do this. Nothing to drive home that discovery is the point of Numenera. There is nothing that helps GM structure games around the idea of discovery. There is nothing that helps players like push and motivate their characters toward discovery. There is nothing like no mechanics having discovery as their central theme. It doesn't exist. There's combat, and that's it. Right? That's the only thing that exists. Everything is kind of loosey-goosey. Oh, do whatever they want. And then at some other points in the book, especially later books, it's like, oh, but you can run whatever kind of game you want with this, right? You can run political intrigue. You can run travel and exploration. You can run combat heavy. You can run this and that. And it's like, yeah, okay, this is an everything game. So I want to actually take the stated design goal of Numenera and say, all right, what if I take the core ideas of the system, core mechanics of the system, and adapt them to something that resembles Discovery. Okay, yes. Right? So that's what I want to do today. So let me save this. Oops. Okay. Right. So that's what I want to do today. Awesome, I joined. Do you know this game? Oh, sorry. That was an old message. I don't know why I thought that was a new message. But yeah, does anyone actually know this game? That would be interesting because it is, like I said, can I delete things? Please, there we go. It is the cipher system in and of itself is good, I think, and the setting is freakishly amazing. That's the okay. Right. So there are a bunch of so I don't want to create a completely new game. That's not the goal here, right? I do want to take the basis of Numenera and I want to a word used multiple times doesn't make it automatically true. Yeah, so that's the thing. And I see this in quite a lot of designs of games actually, is that the designers say our design goal is this. And then when you look at the actual design of the game, you see, hold on, but your game isn't designed toward this goal. Right? The most egregious example I can think of is D&D 5th edition. D&D 5th edition, if you look at the design, what does it tell you? Well, the design of the mechanics tells you, my mother called for help tomorrow, I help with the construction of a wardrobe. Oh, dang. Good luck, then, I guess. Capsize, hi, how are you doing? Welcome. But yeah, so when you look at the design of D&D, it is essentially you have characters that start out as zeros, as like ordinary but special people, and then eventually they grow to become godlike beings, right? The mechanic in D&D 5 tell me hyper focus on combat? Yes, exactly. Because that is the only mechanical system in the game. Combat has a lot of different options. A lot of the decisions you make during character creation and character advancement are all geared for combat and close to nothing else, right? It's like, what spells do I pick? Well, there are a lot of spells geared toward combat. What class do I pick? Well, a lot of the things that the class gives you are combat abilities, right? Like 90% of the abilities and such are all geared toward combat. So a lot of the mechanical decisions you have to make just by playing the game, just by starting to play, but just by creating a character, a lot of the decisions you have to make already are combat related. Right? So the idea is you face enemies, you beat them in tactical skirmish combat, you gain experience, level up and become stronger, and then go and face more powerful enemies. That is the core gameplay loop of D&D since 3rd edition, and it hasn't really changed all that much. 5th edition just crystallized it even more. But the difference between 5th and 4th edition is 5th edition pretends it's not actually this kind of game. The very first sentence in the player's handbook, and you can look this up if you own the book itself or something, the very first sentence in the book says, "This is a game about storytelling." The heck it is. It is not a game about storytelling. It is a game about attaining godlike power by vanquishing thousands of foes in tactical skirmish combat. That's what the game is about. Anything else you do with it, you do despite the game. You do with the game in the background, but the game itself doesn't actually do that for you or doesn't actually help you. Right? Illusion spells should be perfect for social encounters, but the first thing mentioned is how you break them. Yes, exactly. Because that's combat relevant, right? But no suggestion how DM might interact with it from his side of the table at all. Yeah, that's another big issue with D&D 5th edition. Any dungeon master guidance is atrociously bad. Okay, I mentioned this so many times. I'm not gonna go into too much depth, but D&D 5th edition, from anyone who isn't new to D&D, so anyone who has more experience with, like, more experience meaning like 2-3 decades of experience with role-playing games and running games and different systems and such, will look at D&D 5th edition and go, holy heck, this game is really, really bad in helping new DMs, or just helping DMs in general. Heck, 4th edition was better, right? It's just that a lot of people don't know this. It's not talked about because for a lot of people, 5th edition was their first game and is their only game. So for a lot of people, this is like, okay, this is just the standard of the gold standard of how DMing works and how game guidance works and how role-playing games work. And everyone who's played different games and played early editions of D&D and come from a broader history will say, no, D&D is actually not great on that regard. More of a hobby, right, and start with D&D and think some aspects not really help when it comes to storytelling. Yeah, not at all. It's because of, and this is relevant, it's a difference between presentation and actual content. D&D presents itself as a bit of an everything game, but it has a very strictly defined setting and very strictly defined assumptions. It is medieval European fantasy viewed through a Judeo-Christian lens, with a lot of baggage of the previous editions in there, right? Think about things like the Paladin. That is a very intrinsically medieval European fantasy thing. Think of a lot of spells. Those are like wizard spells and such. Heck, even the wizard is based on the Merlin archetype, and the spells that wizards cast are based on a lot of European fantasy tropes, right? If you look at any other kind of mythology or culture or things like that, you would get a very different set of abilities and spells and classes and such. So, but D&D doesn't acknowledge this. D&D might not even be aware of this, right? So it presents itself as an everything game, and is not aware of its own provincialism, and frankly, appropriation of a lot of things, really, a lot of cultural aspects, etc. But it says, I'm an everything game. I am the fantasy game. And then people look at that and go, okay, so this is how fantasy works. And it's not. This is how D&D works. Found a Vampire and the Dark Eye more workable for story? Yes. Kind Kind of. Kind of. Those games have their own issues. I won't. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too far into here because otherwise I'll end up with a huge rant again. For Warlock, an example, I try to find spells that fit that aren't combat focused. As a Warlock, you have to a wider range to get used out of it. Yeah, so that is pretty limiting. It's like you have 250 spells that deal various kinds of damage in various ways. And then you have like 20 spells that are like, oh, I can heat up water. Yeah, the ad is going to hit any moment now, so I will take a short break. I need to eat something. I haven't eaten yet. I'll do that real quick. But yeah, I will try not to get into big rants again. Because I want to design this for a bit. If we have time, I will go into rants. Maybe some people are here just for the rants. So yeah. And I mean, some of these topics are likely going to come up anyway.
In enduring, grow strong.
While I talk about all of this. The reason why I like to look out for spells for more of a multi-tool. Yes. Sadly, those are not a lot. Okay. Eating breakfast at noon. Or thematically fitting for the character in a way. Yes. That's another big thing. A lot of games already have a lot of character options like weapons and spells and abilities and classes already have themes baked into them. Okay. Yeah, I'm just eating right now, so. As a warlock, she can only cast so few times, so it should have an impact as the best spell she finds for the moment. Yeah, yeah. That's another thing, really. It's like, and that's a holdover from older editions. Wizards and spellcaster not being able to do a lot. Okay. I think the ad is over. Okay, the ad is over. Welcome back. I managed to finish one sandwich. Yay. Okay. So, Numenera. So I like the core system of let me title this thing to keep. Right? Okay, so things to keep. Um the the pools. So the stats as pools. Whoa, something happened with that message there. So they her free disguise self sometimes to be silly. Yeah. That's another big limitation in D&D that comes from older editions, that spellcasters can only use spells so few times a day. It's gotten a lot more. I don't want to say better, it's gotten a lot more. A wizard, a level 1 wizard in old first edition and such was able to cast a single spell a day. One spell a day. And things like cantrips did not exist. A cleric in the original D&D couldn't cast spells until 2nd level. So, yeah. Game has changed. When exploration is a core mechanic in story, and travel and related problems should be mentioned? Yes! Yes, so the whole idea is basically that the player characters travel through this weird and wonderful world, facing various dangers, going to strange locations, making discoveries, and then coming back having learned things. And I didn't mention this too much in my introduction because it was getting a bit long, but Numenera, the most updated edition of Numenera, there are 2 core books, Discovery and Destiny. Discovery is basically the old core book, the old version 1 core book, with a bit of errata and a couple of more character options and some, some mechanical fixes, etc. But it's more or less the same game, right? Then comes Destiny, which introduces the whole idea of community building. And that is something I really like. Again, I don't like the mechanics of it. The mechanics are just long lists of things with a very bare bones mechanical system attached to it. But I like the idea of the player characters helping to found a community. That community then becoming their home base. And then what they essentially do is they go out and travel, look for things, discover things, and then come back home with something that the community can use or something that they need. Right? So it's like, oh, we need to take a page from Fallout. Our water purification system is broken, or we're running out of water. We need a water purification system. Right? It's like, okay, and in order to do that, we need something, some object or some material or whatever. And they go out, look for it, maybe find it, and then come back to the community, and the community is like, okay, we have fresh water now, hooray. And then that helps build the community. Right? And I really like that aspect of it. So that's something I do want to look at, but that right now is more of a peripheral thing, right? Not an absolute core system. Right now I'm looking at the core system. When you find an object, the exploration experimentation phase can also be funny to work out. Yes, and that is also something that is not really touched upon in the system. So the system is all, or the game is all like, oh yeah, a lot of things are weird and they can do weird things. How do we identify the things that are weird? We make a level 1 intellect check. Done. So this could have gotten the mothership treatment, I think, where things require experimentation. Where it needs to be talked out. Okay. Throwaway map of mine was a broken flying island with a castle that lost the ability to fly but could be repaired with effort and time. Yeah, things like that. Exactly. You have really weird things, right? And the community could be built inside of a floating castle that looks like a huge iron ball or things like that, right? That just floats through the landscape. Or on the back of a giant creature, right? Like the Wandering Village. That game. The player adopted it as their base and will bring the NPCs they found and slowly build a city out of it. Yes! Yes, yes, yes! This is what I envision. This is what I want Numenera to become when I run it and I play it. But the current game system doesn't support that. So, in the hope it might fly someday. Exactly. Right? That's an entire campaign right there with a lot of awesome story tied to it. Okay, so stats as pools. What does this mean? This means in Numenera you have 3 stats. You have might, speed, intellect, which is very standard. Right? It's just strength, dex, int. Very, very standard 3 stats. And each of these has a value, right? And what this value actually is a number of points, a pool of points that you spend for effort to make checks easier, right? So you don't have hit points or anything like that. You have these pool points, and you spend them. And when you rest and recover or heal, you recover these things, right? That is the basic idea. Now, very interestingly, this is one of the core ideas. This is part of the core resolution mechanic of the game, right? You want to make a check, and the GM tells you, "Oh, this check has a difficulty of 7," and then you go, "Oh, it's way too high. I want to spend some points to lower it." And then later on, after you've adventured a bit, I'm like, "Okay, I've spent a bunch of points. Let's rest for a bit." Right? Let's rest for a bit. And recover. And that's essentially how the system works. This is the core loop, mechanical loop. Now, player managed to talk a Clockwork Lich to help them. Ooh. For the moment, he has an interesting project to work on, but he is highly dangerous. He gets bored and starts to find new projects that occupy him. That is interesting. Having like a ticking time bomb that you have to reset all the time. I love it. Right? Risk reward. Cost benefit analysis, essentially. Okay. Right. So you have these, and then in the Numenera base game, in the Cypher system base game, speaking quite literally in that case, yes, indeed. This system is quite complex. So things like you will have something like between, I don't know, 10 and 20 something points or so in each pool. And like your first level of effort costs 3 points. Your second level and subsequent levels cost 2 points each. Certain abilities cost like different numbers of points. So it's like, oh, I want to put in 2 levels of effort. So that's 5 points. So you have to subtract 5 points from this. And then it's like, oh, I'm using this ability. Okay, that ability costs 3 points to use. Okay, I can do that. And then it adds onto that by having something called edge, which reduces the point cost of things for every time you spend them. So if you have an edge of 2, you're like, this ability costs 3 points, but I have an edge of 2, so it only costs 1 point. Or like I'm using effort, and that's where it becomes complex. It's like if you're using effort, you combine the entire cost and then subtract the edge from that. You don't subtract it for every level. So it's like, I want to spend effort. Okay, how much effort? I want to spend 2 levels of effort. Okay, so that's 3 points for the first level, 2 points for the second level. That makes 5 points total. And then you subtract your edge of 2, and then you only pay 3 points. If you are lost right now, that is completely understandable because I have tried explaining this system to various players, and it took them a long time to get it if they got it at all. Right? So this is it's very complex. It doesn't need to. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You forgot counting halfway through. And then if you want to change something, you're like, hold on, I have to start anew because now the values are different. So this system is overly complex. I believe if a Cypher System version 2, second edition Cypher System, were to ever come out, this would be one of the things to be simplified. Why? Because it has been simplified already. The Torment Tides of Numenera video game that is built upon the Numenera setting and the Cypher system simplifies the system. You get a smaller number for each pool, but every level of effort only costs 1 point. There is no, oh, this costs 3 points, that costs 2 points, blah, blah, blah. And then this ability costs this many points, this ability costs that many points, right? It's like, this is 3 points, and this one's 4 points, and this one's 6 points. It's, not gonna lie, I've only played one D&D campaign, but this sounds cool, and I was so confused. Yes. It is confusing. It definitely is confusing, but I'm enjoying listening. Okay, I'm glad. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But yeah, no, it is confusing, 100%, right? So it's very interesting that Monte Cook on the one hand says, oh, difficulties we're gonna treat very coarsely, right? We're only gonna do levels 1 to 10, and that's like fine enough for our purposes, right? D&D has a very relatively fine system where you have, oh, you can have a difficulty number of 12 or 13 or 14, right? It's like, what's the difference? I don't know. Maybe 14 feels more correct. But in Numenera, you just go, well, I have a difficulty of 5. That equates to a target number of 15. Or I have a difficulty of 4. That equates to a target number of 12. Okay, what about target numbers 13, 14? Now, we don't need those. That's too fine. That's too small a step, right? We don't need to be that precise. And then when it comes to these point costs for spending pools, spending points from your pools, you're like, oh, but this ability costs 3 and that ability costs 4, right? And all of a sudden it gets very granular, very fine. It's like, why this disconnect, right? So like I was saying, this has already been updated in the Torment Tides of Numenera video game. Everything is just 1 points, 2 points, right? And you have the same coarseness. So if you want to put 1 level of effort in order to make the task 1 level easier, right? From a level 5 task to a level 4 task, for example, you spend 1 point. So you want to bash in a door. That's a might check. Okay. It's a difficulty 5 might check. Oh, that is a bit high. I would like to lower it. I spent 2 points of my might pool to lower the difficulty by 2 levels, and now it's a level 3 check, right? And then I calculate the target number to be 9, and then I roll a d20, 9 or higher, I make it, right? And no more like these small steps of, oh, I spent 3 points and 2 points and subtract that and this point over there. No, none of that. It's just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? So in that game, it was already changed to the system. Now you can say, okay, that's for the video game. How much input did Monte Cook actually have in that system, and how much was it to be made simpler for a video game audience? I can tell you that Monte Cook himself also updated the system in his other game, Invisible Sun. Invisible Sun, in fact, it's a very different game, and it's like runs on completely different things, but the very core system is still the same. The GM determines a target number between 1 and 10, or maybe 1 and 15. I don't know, doesn't matter, right? And then you also lower this by spending points from your pool, and then you roll a d10, not a d20, a d10 straight against the difficulty. So if the GM says this is a difficulty 8 test, you have to roll a d10 and get an 8 or higher. And then you say, oh, this is too difficult, I wish to lower it. So I spend 2 points from my pool for this stat and lower it from an 8 to a 6. And now I only have to roll a 6 or higher on my d10. So Monty Cook himself simplified and streamlined this system in his next game, Invisible Sun. Right? So that means this system is too complicated. There is too much detail in it that doesn't add anything to the game, right? Do you really need to balance 3 points versus 2 points when spending them? Or is it okay to just say, okay, it's all just the same cost and it like we don't care about the fractions, essentially, right? And the answer is you don't have to care about all those small points. Just make it more broad, make it more coarse, and it's done. Treat it just like everything else in the game, right? Make it more coarse and streamlined. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to essentially take. I'm thinking. So I don't know if I want to take the D20 or the D10. I am liking the idea of the D10, where it's just straight everything comparing numbers, no calculation needed. So the idea is. So when you have a check, step 1, GM sets difficulty. Right? And I think in Invisible Sun it goes from 1 to 15. Right? I think, or maybe 5 to 15 or something, doesn't matter, right? That is up to the GM. And then step 2, player can spend points, right, of the appropriate stat. So if this task is a might task, where might would help, then you spend might points. If it's a speed task, then you spend speed points. Something like balancing across a tight beam. Or an intellect task, like figuring something out or talking to someone, then you spend intellect points, right? So far, so good. Plus, use skills plus assets, etc. Right? So equipment, training that you have. You're trying to climb a wall and you have a climbing skill, that helps you. If you have a rope, that also helps you, right? And then what this does is lower difficulty. 1 to 1. This is the important part, 1 to 1. So if I spend 1 point, I lower the difficulty by 1. If I have 1 skill, I lower the difficulty by 1. If I have 1 asset, an item, for example, I lower the difficulty by 1. Right? So this whole 1 to 1 system keeps things easy to keep track of. And then roll d10, greater or higher difficulty. Right? Success. Done. That's the system. 3 steps. And like I'm thinking this is the system I want to use. Like Monty Cook himself already said, essentially, the system in Numenera is too complex, too fine. And then in Invisible Sun, he changed it to this. So that's what I'm going to use. I don't even need to design something myself. I'm just taking something else he designed for a different game. Right. So now we have the core resolution, right? That also means simple obstacle difficulty. Or not simple obstacle difficulty, but simple, how do I call this? Let's call it something else. Let's call it fractal stat blocks. So one of the big reasons why I do not run D&D anymore, I used to run it, and that's where I fully discovered this to be the case, and that was why I don't run it anymore, is the stat blocks. If you're designing a monster, if you're designing any creature or so, and you think, oh, this thing might see combat, you have to design a big stat block for it, and you have to keep track of all of the numbers and information in there. And I'm just not able to do that. I'm not able to do that anymore because there's just too much happening at the table. Part of it is the way I run games and how I prep things, right? And part of it is just I cannot keep up with that many individual things, especially if you get into a combat and there's like 3 or 4 different types of enemies that I have 3 or 4 different stat blocks and I need to keep track of all of them, and I can't. So that's one of the big reasons I stopped running D&D. And I said to my group back then, yo, can we change system? And initially they were on board, but then the group fell apart. So I don't know how much that had to do with it. But yeah. So in Numenera, on the other hand, all you need for any sort of obstacle, an NPC, a trap, a monster, a danger, whatever, is a single number. The difficulty. That's all you need. Right? You can say, this NPC is level 3. That monster is level 6. This chasm that you're trying to jump is level 7. Right? That's all you need. And every other stat flows from there, basically. Right? So that's the only thing you need, and you can run a game using only that. And then fractal, because if you do want more detail, you can add it, right? So only level is necessary. Other details. My handwriting is atrocious today. I apologize. Can be added as wanted or required. Right? So if you are saying, okay, this NPC is an expert tracker, the NPC on their own is just level 3, but maybe they are specialized in tracking, right? So when they do any tracking tasks, they are instead level 6, right? You can do that. So you can have, as an example, there, something like expert tracker, right? NPC, and then you go level 3 tracking as level 6, right? So anytime you do any task with the NPC, or if the player characters are trying to do anything to the NPC, that NPC rolls like level 3, or is treated like a level 3 obstacle or whatever. But if that NPC is tracking, say the player characters are out in the wilderness and they want to avoid this character, but this NPC is tracking them, then the difficulty to evade this NPC and have like obscure your tracks and such suddenly becomes a level 6 task. Right? And you can do that, right? Or you can write things like has animal companion, etc., etc., right? You can add as much detail here as you want, or you can have just expert tracker level 3 done. Mark Songs, hello, welcome. Welcome. How are you doing? I hope you had a good week. Nice to see you here. Yeah, we're just doing some homebrew of the cipher system of Numenera. Right? Is this Numenera? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is a homebrew. Or it is me trying to adapt Numenera into something that I personally think I would enjoy running more. Right, for Numenera itself. So yes, you are indeed correct. Never played? Okay. It is, I don't know if it's one of the bigger indie RPGs out there. The Cypher system is definitely one of the bigger ones out there. D&D guy? Yeah, I mean, that's fair. You know, most people are. But that's okay. Yeah, but the idea is essentially the Cypher system, I think is a bad fit for the Numenera game. So I'm trying to make a new system. Oh, I'm bleeding. Okay. Or not a new system, but I'm trying to adapt the system into something that feels more like what Numenera is trying to sell. That makes sense. That's probably the best way to phrase it that I've found. So yeah, the fractal stat blocks and anything else can be expressed this way, right? So if you are facing a trap, for example, then it can be, oh, this trap is level 4, right? But I don't know, salvaging the trap might just be a level 2 for whatever reason that you want it to be, right? So these are two big things I want to keep. And then was there something else? I want to try and keep the character building, kind of. Old school D&D guys started with the first basic set in 79. Wow, that went to 8080 first edition, second edition, skipped third and fourth, started up again with 5e. Oof. Dang, okay. And I thought I started with second edition back in 98, something like that. But dang, that is a long and storied. Yeah, so big old school. Nice. Okay. Um okay, have you played other games then? Anything else beside, I don't know, if you skip third and fourth, then that probably means you didn't really have time to play in general. I'm going to do a dangerous thing and assume. Um but yeah, it would be interesting to like if you've tried any other games as well. But dang, yeah, that's pretty cool. I am I'm not gonna say, yeah, no, I am kind of rediscovering old school. Like AD&D second edition was just on the cusp of no longer being old school, I guess. Right. Um so that's so I never really experienced the old thing in its original, but I'm loving the old school renaissance. Um Gamma World, Traveler, Werewolf, Vampire the Masquerade, Palladium Games, Rollmaster Fjord. Nice. Cool. A lot of these also old names. Tried a lot back in the day. Yeah. I was gonna say those are a lot of classics. By now, they're classics just like how Linkin Park is classic rock. Um um Yeah, but nice, nice. That is so cool. It's nice to see someone else here who has also uh played this much and especially experienced RPGs in the old days and who is not just I learned D&D 2 years ago, right? I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's awesome having more people in the in the hobby. Um, but I do wish that people will eventually see there is more to RPGs than just D&D. Um, yeah, Linkin Park ain't no classical. Yeah, exactly. But that's what the classic stations are playing now, apparently. So getting old is thing. Um, yes, I saw this post at some point. It's like me when me when the classic station plays Linkin Park, and then you get the scene from Saving Private Ryan where Matt Damon just ages 60 years in a blink of an eye. We are just classic. Yeah, we're classic. Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. Mm, right. So yeah, doing some. So when did Numenera come out? Actually, been quite a while. Uh, before fifth edition, I believe. Let me look this up real quick. Numenera. I'm interested now. 2013. 2013. What am I changing? Why do I like it better? Okay, so um the basic idea is Numenera is an absolutely amazing setting. I kind of mentioned this or talked about this a bit earlier, but that's okay. Numenera, the setting of Numenera is Earth a billion years in the future, right? 1 billion. And 8 great civilizations have risen and fallen in the meantime. Great civilizations meaning things like intergalactic empires, people that toyed with physics and time and things like that, and gravity, people that have manipulated the sun so that it doesn't blow up into a red giant, things that have portal technology, um, or civilizations that I don't know, built a Dyson sphere or things like that, right? Like that kind of idea of great civilization. And now in the Numenera game, you have people at medieval level technology that are finding all of this lost old technology around them, and to them it feels like magic. So it's a science fantasy setting. And this game, the system feels a lot like a streamlined, simplified um, D&D third edition with some good ideas in there, some good innovations in there. And anything built off of D&D third edition is not a good fit in my eyes for a game where the impetus is supposed to be going out, exploring and discovering the old technology and then tinkering with it and incorporating it into your everyday life. Right? Um so what I'm going to keep is some of the innovations and good streamlining. And I'm hoping to make a game that uh has some mechanical support for the whole discovery thing, exploration and discovery theme, while also getting rid of unnecessary complexity. Right. So I kind of mentioned this before when talking about the stats as pools. The game tries to have a very broad and coarse and simplified framework. So it is too crunchy. It is uh kind of. That's the weird dichotomy of this game. So the framework of the game is not crunchy, right? The framework is, oh, we just have difficulties of level 1 to 10, and then we just kind of roll a die, and you make it or not, and you don't have things like skill levels. You have very simple ideas of very very coarse, like in D&D you would have things like difficulty 12, 13, 14, 15, and then here you just have levels 1 to 10, and you convert that to a number that you can roll on a d20, but that means you skip over some, right? So difficulty 3 would be a target number of 9, you multiply by 3, and difficulty 4 would be a target number of 12. So you just ignore 10 and 11, right? Because it's too crunchy. You get things like the NPCs and things that just have this difficulty level. You get things like, oh, we're not doing exact measurements of distances or time or things like that because that's too crunchy, right? So the framework is not crunchy, but the details are extremely crunchy. Right? When you look at character abilities, it's like you can move this distance per turn, and this ability costs you exactly 4 points to use, and then you deal exactly this amount of damage when using this ability, blah 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 blah. And you have a combat system where you have light weapons and medium weapons and heavy weapons and light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, and wearing armor causes you to like go through this and get this penalty and blah. And it's like, huh? What are you doing, right? Why do you have these extremely crunchy, detailed subsystems packed into a framework that is very loose? And I think that's the worst direction to go, right? If you had a framework that was more crunchy, but then details that were more loose, I think that works better if you want to go down into a more crunchy route. For me, I like that sort of crunch, but if it's too much, then I get it. Yeah, and it's like I don't mind that sort of crunch in general, but the problem for me is the game sells itself as, oh my god, look, everything is so simple, everything is so streamlined, we don't bother with details in this game. Right? That's the message the game is sending out. And then if you actually look at the mechanics and character options, you realize, hold on, I actually do have to care about the details, right? So it's this disconnect. It's hard to understand with what you mean without a solid example of how it clashes. Okay, so the basic framework, right, really is just GM sets a difficulty between 1 and 10, and then you multiply that number by 3 to get the difficulty that the player has to roll on a d20. Is that the message of the cipher system or Numenera? The cipher system. It's the mechanical message, right? Because if you're looking at the rules of the game chapter, where is it? Rules of the game. Yeah, the rules and dice help make the game run smoothly. This is me reading straight off the rulebook right now. And then this is how you play Numenera, and it's just very simple, right? Okay, they do 6 steps because they include the player tells the GM what they want to do. So it's just GM works out the difficulty, and the player determines if they can lower the difficulty using things like skills and assets. Like it doesn't even define what an asset is. If you look at modifying the difficulty, assets. An asset is anything that helps a character with a task, such as having a really good crowbar when trying to force open a door, or being in a rainstorm when trying to put out a fire, right? Appropriate assets vary from task to task. The perfect all might help when woodworking, but wouldn't make a dance performance much better. So they just give you very rough guidelines. And it's on things like, oh, how do I mechanically make this task easier? Well, if I just have a good tool, how do I determine if I have a good tool? You just kind of, talk about it. You just say, oh, look, I have crowbar written on my character sheet and I'm trying to force open this door. Can I use that? Right? And that's all it is. And and so you get this very loose system. It's not like a crowbar +1, right? So that gives you a +1 on things where you can use it. It's like, no, it's just this is a crowbar. And then you can later on say, oh, I'm trying to bash this console that I found. I still have my crowbar. Can I use that? Right? Things like this. Numenera want to make it crunchy, and you like the setting but not the crunch. Kind of. Yes. Okay, yes, I absolutely adore the setting. It is one of the best settings I have ever seen. And it's not that I don't like the crunch. I believe the crunch is misplaced. I don't mind some crunch in the game, and given the correct framework, given the correct system, like I'm designing a more OSR adjacent game right now as well, that has a bit more crunch to it, right? Things like exact item slots where you have to determine how much you can carry and things like that. Numenera doesn't even have that. It's like, how much can I carry? Yeah, whatever makes sense, right? That's how they handle encumbrance in this game. So if the game tells you all of these rules, right? You look at rules of the game. Okay, so this is all very, very broad and coarse, and we can just kind of hand wave many things. We don't even have to determine what exactly people are carrying, blah blah blah. And then you get into combat. And then there's like 5-6 pages of just combat rules with various modifiers of, oh, are you prone? Are you on higher ground? Are you behind cover? Are you using a light weapon? It's like, why? Why are you suddenly giving so much detail for this one specific thing? Or character options. It's like, oh, you want to use this ability? Well, this ability costs you exactly this many points, and there's this one ability, Howls at the Moon. On 5, it's essentially you become a werewolf, right? And then the first ability is on 5 consecutive nights each month, you change into a monstrous beast, blah, blah. You gain +8 to your might pool, +1 to your might edge, +2 to your speed. I was like, what the heck? What the heck? Why so crunchy? Right? Why do you do this? What? Right? Why are you adding so much extra detail to this particular character option? Instead of having a more broad crunch kind of deal. Or not broad crunch kind of deal, but like while saying at the same time that the game is very streamlined and smooth and simple. And that's where a clash happens, because they say, oh, we're not going to calculate exact distances, but then you get certain character abilities where you say, oh, you can detect anything within this distance, or you can run this distance, but it's still the same broad categories. Like you can run a close distance and then do this and that in your turn. It's like, eh? And then the next sentence is something like, and then you deal 5 damage. So it's like, huh? That feels like a big clash. I don't know if that makes any sense or if it's just me being weird in this case, but it feels like a very big disconnect. And I would like to keep the most of the basic framework. And if I want to make any crunch, I want it to be in parts of the game, of the mechanics, that actually sell the kind of experience that Numenera promises, which is exploration and discovery. Which right now is not the case. There is not a single mechanical system in the game that deals with exploring or traveling or discovering things or such. There's only a mechanical system for combat, which is very D&D. So it probably explains why this game became so popular. Because it's a cool system married to a D&D-esque, or a cool setting married to a D&D-esque system. Right, so, okay. The character building. I want to keep the whole descriptor type focus thing. But I want to change... Oops, focus. I want to change some of the details. Like, for instance, in type, there is an entire character type, an entire character class devoted to combat. I don't think that I don't think that's very good in a game about exploration. Right? It's like if you have a player picking this character type, you must put combat into the game, otherwise they pick this class and all their abilities revolve around combat, but then they don't get to use it. Focus. So with focus, you can tell that Monte Cook tried to include as many archetypal things as possible. So if you read some of the foci in the game, you can say, this is the one that you pick if you want to play classic fantasy paladin. This is the one that you pick as a mage. This is the one if you want pick a barbarian. This is the one if you want to play a rogue. This is where you are a priest, right? Or a cleric. This is the one where you are a fire mage if you want to be that specific, right? Things like that. So you can tell that happening. So a lot of them are geared toward classic medieval European fantasy archetypes, which I feel detracts from the Numenera setting, because the Numenera setting, the whole point is that it's weird and unfamiliar and strange and wonderful, and not classic medieval European fantasy, right? And that also means there are a lot of foci that deal with combat, like fights with two weapons, fights with panache, rages, fights defensively, masters weaponry. A lot of these things are like, huh? So I want to change the options in there. There's other difficulties or other problems I see in there, which is they try to sell you a fantasy but then don't give you the fantasy, which can be a bit disappointing. Like one of my characters, one of my players picked a focus called Thunders, and the Thunders focus is sold to you as if you shout at something, it explodes. Kind of like Marvel's Black Bolt, right? Kind of sort of that idea. And then so the player was like, oh my god, that's so cool, I want to pick that. And then picks that focus, and then the tier 1 focus that you get at the start of the game is you are actually a Geiger counter. If you have any radiation close to you and you activate your power, you begin picking and clicking, because that totally has to do with thunders, right? So it's like it sells you this fantasy of being Black Bolt, but then it tells you, no, you're actually a Geiger counter. Sucks to be you. So that's like, if I want to pick this focus because I want to be Black Bolt, please let me be Black Bolt. Don't turn me into a Geiger counter. So that's and that happens in many of the foci, right? For reasons because of how the game system is set up. But the biggest change I want to make is the descriptor. So the descriptor is the adjective, so things like clever, swift, strong, charming, rugged, etc., etc. And right now, the descriptor is just a bunch of mechanical mechanical modifiers. It's like, oh, if you pick the strong descriptor, you gain +4 to your might pool, and you are trained in jumping. Yay? Awesome? Question mark. So that's like there's so much potential in here. Right? There's so much that can be done. Also for role playing, there's so much more that can be included in the descriptor to aid the character and to aid the player in role playing and to tie the character more strongly to or not tie the character more strongly, but like to help and guide and prompt role playing in a certain way. So that's something, that's the narrative designer in me coming out. But that is something I definitely want to explore. Yeah. Well, I need to turn our light real quick. There we go. Makes sense? Okay, I'm glad. So I'm not just doing strange rambling things, being like the, I don't know, the person who hasn't showered in 3 months standing at a street corner saying the end is nigh. You can't work with the system because it gets in the way, and yeah, changes are good. I mean, yeah, that's the whole point of homebrew, right? And that's so there are a couple things I really like about the system as well, not just the setting, but the system. And I want to see if I can work around them. Right? And instead of designing something completely new, like a lot of the changes are going to be character options, right? That's the most basic type of homebrew you can do. You look at, I like the game in and of itself, but I would like to have, in D&D, for example, I would like to have this kind of class, or I would like to have this kind of spell, or whatever, right? And then you just design it and add it into there as a character option. So I'm going to, like, the types and the foci especially are going to be a lot of character option design. And so this is mainly just, oh, that looks horrendous. It's just character options. Right? The descriptor is more tie into role playing somehow. I don't know how yet because I would have to design other things in the game that help. But yeah. Okay. So that's the things I want to keep. And then some things I want to add or change more thoroughly. By change, add, remove. So I am going to completely get rid of the combat system for now. I feel like this first. I feel like if I were to ever design a more concrete combat system for this game, it would be later on once some other core systems are already in place. Right? So remove combat system. A thought just struck me. How much work is this going to be? Good question. I mean, so I think the most work, a lot of the work has already been done for me. Right? I wanted to change the way the core resolution mechanic works, but that has already been done for me by Montecook himself in his game Invisible Sun. So this system over here, This system over here is from his game that followed Numenera, from Invisible Sun, which uses the same basic resolution system, but streamlined and simplified. If we could simply use the cipher system was a setting, that's the thing. The cipher system, comes from this game. Numenera is the game that brought the cipher system to the world. Right? So the cipher system exists because Numenera exists. Yes, exactly. So before the cipher, so Numenera came out first, and then later, not much later, but later, like a year or two later, the cipher system came out as it was sold, the universal version, the setting agnostic version of the system that is used to run Numenera. Okay, an ad is about to hit. But yes, I mentioned this before, I don't know if the cipher system was designed first and then Numenera was added as a setting in order to sell it, to bring it out into the world, right? Because it's easier to sell a complete game with an interesting setting than it is to just sell a universal system. I believe that is what happened. The more I look at the game design and such, the more I believe this is exactly what happened. That he designed the cipher system and then said, as a marketing tactic, I need an amazing game with an amazing setting to sell my name and my brand and the game itself. And then once people know the game, then I can pick up the cipher system itself.
In enduring, grow strong.
And sell that. Okay, the ad just hit. So I'm gonna pause real quick and eat my second sandwich, which has been sitting here for a while. So what I'm doing is I'm homebrewing the cipher system. Okay. Eating my breakfast. I have a sandwich that's filled with mashed sweet potatoes. So, you know, that's the thing you can buy in convenience stores here. A mashed sweet potato sandwich. It's two different types of mashed potato. Sweet potato even, so. Yeah. Ah. But yeah, it's 1:20 p.m. and I'm still eating the second part of my breakfast. Holy heck. Hmm. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all doing okay, and that my rambling isn't too grating. Um. Ah. It's warm again today, which is yeah. It was a nice 20-something degrees the past few days, whole week, and now it's warm again, and I'm sitting here and I'm sweating a little bit again. Like it's end of October, man. Why is it 30 degrees already? Again. Why is it so hot? I mean, I know why, but it sucks. So yeah. Just check real quick. Messages from work. Okay. All right, ad is over. Welcome back, everyone. So yeah, Cipher system. The Cipher system comes from Numenera. That's why, by the way, it's called the Cipher system. Because ciphers are a big part of the Numenera setting, right? Ciphers are the bits and pieces of... No ad for you? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just, I have planned, scheduled ads. Right? I have to have some form of ads. So I'm just deciding, all right, I have 3 minutes every hour. I can schedule them, and then I can pause what I'm doing for anyone who's stuck in an ad. So it's fair for everyone. But okay. We have 14 degrees, so we might trade nice middle ground. Yes, please. Please, let's go to like mid-20s. Like 23 degrees across the board, that would be perfect. Yeah, that's why it's called the Cipher system, because ciphers are all of the bits and pieces of discarded technology that characters find and use, like one-time use things, right? And that's where the name comes from. Ostensibly. Like I said, I do believe by now that Monte Cook designed something, maybe not outright saying this is going to be a universal system, but he may have, consciously or unconsciously, designed something that resembles a universal system as much as possible, aped an awesome setting to it, and then sold that as a package Numenera. And then when the time came around, it's like, okay, let's just rip off the tape, get rid of the setting, and then let's sell the Cipher system on its own. Yeah. So what I am homebrewing is the Cipher system itself, basically. Because even though it came from Numenera, I think it is not a good fit for the game. Because it is so divorced from the setting. And Numenera as a setting can really benefit from a system that fully supports the themes that it tries to sell you. Okay. Remove the combat system. Then another thing I want to remove is the character tiers. What is this? So, as simple as the framework is, there are two different leveling systems in it. The first one is the one called level. So not a leveling system, but like a level system where the game master determines the level of everything in the world, right? That which is essentially the difficulty. Player characters, on the other hand, don't use the level system, so they don't go from level 1 to 10. Everything else goes from level 1 to 10, but the player characters, for some reason, go from tier 1 to tier 6. I don't know why. I don't know why that was determined to be the best system to run it, but that leads to a couple of weird... For one, that leads to this weird disconnect of player characters have their own leveling system, and everything in the world it's two different scales you measure everything by, right? And the other thing is the 6 tiers are a very D&D-esque zero to hero kind of level system, where if you are playing a mage, for example, called a nano in Numenera, if you're playing a nano in Numenera, at tier 1, you can do things like, I can scan objects around me, or I have magical tricks where I can clean things, hooray. And then at level 6, you are like, I can move an entire mountain with the power of my mind. It's like, huh? a bit of a jump, right? So that feels a bit like it's very clearly from a kind of D&D growth system, character growth system, right? A D&D power curve, that's the word I was looking for. And I don't know if I like that. And on the other hand, it takes away a lot of attention from the character focus and puts it all on the character type. And I would like those to be kind of 50-50, maybe. Right now, it's like a lot of attention goes to character type because that's where all of the decisions are made. That's where all of the interesting abilities are. And then the focus just kind of vegetates, right? So I want to get rid of that and have an alternate, if any, character advancement system or more natural growth. I had a thought, however, when talking about the combat system. So my problem with the crunch, this is the thing. So my problem with the crunch, because I kept when I was talking about it before, I kept thinking it's not 100% right, but I haven't phrased it correctly yet. I haven't quite phrased it correctly. I haven't quite found the correct point that I'm trying to make here. So the crunch, how do I say this? So crunch can mean multiple things when you're talking about game complexity or game design and such, but really that makes it not as useful a term. So the way I use crunch, and this is an idea I read on like RPG blogs and such, design blogs. When I use crunch, I mean small details. Right? So there's actually two axes you can have. Right? Two axes. And one of them is is it systems? Do I call it systems? Yeah, let's call it systems or processes. And the other is details. And we're talking about mechanics here, right? So you can have like complex and simple on this axis, and you can have crunchy and light on this axis. I once had a conversation with a player for a rule detail. It took us 30 minutes to find the answer for the question. After we found it randomly, we knew if we got the reason for our search. Yeah, that's... that... That can definitely be an issue if you have too many small details in the game. So, and also if the details are just floating around in a way. So what I mean with this axis here is you can have complex systems. Like the D&D combat system is relatively complex. Right? You have an exact order that you have to follow. You have like every character gets exactly this one turn, and what they can do in a turn is exactly determined by how many actions you have and what those actions are. And there's different types of actions. There's like move action and a standard action and a bonus action and all of these things, right? So the system, the combat system of D&D 5e is fairly complex, right? So it would be on this end of the spectrum. Whereas the Numenera system sells itself as being closer to this end of the spectrum, right? Which is just difficulty number, reduce difficulty number, and then roll. Done, right? It was nearly a history type of digging because the original reference for the rule was written with knowledge in mind. Practically without it, utterly useless as an example. Oof. Okay. So you have to know where the thing is and where it comes from? Dang. And then on the other hand, you have crunch. So in D&D, for instance, spells have a lot of details, right? There are many small numbers to look at. There are many. So let me write down the. So this is D&D combat here, and this one would be cipher or resolution mechanic, right? And then the details are things like D&D spells, right, which have quite a few small details, like how much damage do they do, what area do they have, what range do they have, do they allow a saving throw, which type do they allow, right? A lot of these small details that you have to look up. And then a light detail thing would be just like, if you want to fight someone, you just need a weapon, doesn't matter which type, right? They all do basically the same thing. So something like Blades in the Dark equipment would fall under this, right? It's like, it's all very narrative. We just kind of sort of see, oh, do you have this item? What does it do? We'll determine that in the narrative, right? We don't need too many details. It's not like this thing weighs exactly this much or costs this much or can only be used this and that often and deals this much damage or lasts this long, or no, none of that, right? We just all determine this as we go. Now, I say D&D spells, for example, or D&D equipment, well, combat equipment, right? Not equipment in general, but combat equipment, has quite a bit of crunch to it. But, and this is the important part, the crunch is supported by a framework. So the D&D spell casting system and combat system, because a lot of spells do function within the combat system, the combat system has all of these. It's almost like filling in a form, right? It has all of these empty slots or things that you have to tick, and then you just fill in those details, and you look up the details on your weapon table or on your spell description, etc. Right? So things like when you're casting a spell, every single spell goes, does it require a saving throw? Yes, no. Which type of saving throw? Pick one of the 6. And then what is the range? What is the area? What is the damage it deals or the effect it has, right? So you essentially have, you effectively have a spell stat block, right? You have a spell stat block that has the framework for this, and character sheets help. Yes, they do help. But what I'm talking about is a bit more systemic, right? So it's essentially saying there is a spell stat block, and every single spell in the game follows this stat block. You check, does it allow a saving throw? Yes, no. If it allows one, which of the 6 is it? Right? Pick one. It can only be one of these 6. What is the range? There's a couple of categories: personal range, touch range, some sort of maybe a numerical range, right? I'm not 100% sure. And then you go into the description. It's like, okay, it deals damage in the area. Okay, it deals this much damage, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but a lot of the details, the mental load for the details is offloaded onto the system. If you understand the system, you understand what kind of details you need to remember. Right? Does that make sense? It's kind of like if you are baking cakes. Let's see if this analogy will work. It's kind of like if you're baking cakes, different types of cakes, and you know, okay, I will have, you look at the recipe, I will have a list of ingredients. I will have a list of maybe tools that I need, right? What kind of a form do I need for the cake? I will have something like the oven temperature, right? So these are all small details, and even some of the ingredients will always be the same: flour, milk, usually eggs, etc., right? Um, which would be like, does this need flour? Yes. Okay, how much flour? And so on and so forth. So because you have the system of baking cake recipe, you don't need like every recipe you look at, every new recipe you look at is not understanding recipes from scratch, right? You understand how recipes work, and then you see, okay, list of ingredients, this kind of baking form, oven temperature, and you start looking for these things. If you have a baking recipe and it doesn't give you the oven temperature, you're like, hold on, this clashes with the system, right? There's something missing here, and so on. Um, and and that's basically what the spell system, the spell stat block in D&D does, right? You're like, saving throw, yes, no. Which saving throw? Range, area, blah, 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 effects, and so on. So you look at a spell description, and you a lot of this, it's not completely looking at it from scratch, completely new. There's a bunch of details in there that are already covered by the system because every single spell has them, right? And then you start looking for them instinctively because you understand how spells in D&D work. Okay, does that make sense? So this is crunchy details, yes, but couched into a system that helps you, that acts like a checklist and helps you make sense of and organize, mentally organize all of the details that you're dealing with. Right? Numenera is not like that. The cipher system is not like that. That's what I meant with having a very simple framework, but having very crunchy details. Because the details that you find in the Numenera character options, like certain abilities, mostly in the abilities, or certain cipher descriptions and such, it's all like, all of these are individual. Every time you look at a character ability, you have to look at it from scratch because there is no framework for the kinds of details you are looking for in a character ability. It also helps with the readability of the spell in the long run. Yes, exactly. It helps with the readability because you can just have a quick summary of the most pertinent details already organized together because they appear on every single spell, right? So you might have some abilities, some character abilities in Numenera that just go, oh, you are trained in tracking and wilderness survival. Done. And then you get character abilities that are like half a page going like the one I read, like every 5 consecutive nights every month, you get +8 to your might pool, and you get +1 to your might edge, you get +2 to this, and it lasts this and that, and you do this and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. It's like, wow. And looking across character abilities, you cannot find a pattern. You cannot find a system. And that is the problem. That means the details are all independent, are all new every single time, and they create a massive mental load because you are not given a system to mentally organize them. Right. I think I have been trying to phrase this particular point of contention I have with the cipher system for probably a year now. And I think this is the explanation I am finally happy with. This is the one that communicates what I want, what my actual issue is. Right? And comparing it to other systems where you say, yeah, but this system is also crunchy. True, but it has a systemic framework that helps you organize the crunch. Numenera doesn't. And that's the problem. Okay. Got that out of the way. Right. I think I need to talk with a D&D player next week for their sleep mechanic they misunderstood as an astral elf. Oof. Yeah, and this is another thing. Like, you can also definitely have very detailed systems. small subsystems that are extremely detailed, but that only affect certain character options, maybe, or certain very niche game situations. And then you ask if you actually need that detail. Exhaustion. I keep bringing up exhaustion from D&D 5e. Is one such system. It's extremely detailed, quite intricate, quite complex as a system. But it's just kind of floating around on its own. They thought they don't need to sleep at only once a month for a day? What? Okay. That's fascinating. I wish I could do that. I'm gonna lie. Right. Okay, so this is the main thing I want to change. This is the main thing I want to change in Numenera. Right? So D&D spells are really kinda sorta here, right? Whereas Numenera character abilities are here. So really there should be a third axis. There should be a third axis here that is systemic support or not. But I think I've explained my point. So the main thing to change remove is I need to obviously changing the character options is going to help, right? Removing detail from the character options. But I also want to see if I can have a framework that makes these character options more related. Right? Where if you're just reading the book, for example, trying to create a character, trying to pick something, that you can more easily kind of compare and contrast if you want to. Right? But in character, oh my goodness!
You must gather your party before venturing forth.
Chris, hi. Owl Raid, Awkward Pain, hi. Oh god, this is moving very fast. Who else? J Orion Tell, is that how you say it? Sanic, haha, hoot hoot, hi Chris. Rat Scratch, hello. How's it going? What were you doing? Sonic X Shadow Generations. Ooh, how was that? Did you manage to go fast? How was it? Redback Spider, hello. Connor, hello as well. How's it? Joe Ryan Tell? Joe Ryan Tell. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. We went so fast. The next Sonic game? Nice. What you working on? Okay, hi, welcome Raiders. For those who don't know me, my name is Chichin. I am a Bard VTuber who does old games, role-playing games, designs role-playing games like right now. And today, I am looking at the Numenera / Cypher System game and trying to homebrew it and change it into something I like, because just before the raid, literally just before the raid, I finally managed to articulate my biggest point of contention I have with the system. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now, changing the Numenera / Cypher system into something that I think fits the theme of Numenera better. Right? So if you know the game, if you don't know the game, if you want to know how tabletop role-playing game design works, if you have any questions about DTRPGs, about their design, about how to run them, blah, whatever, ask. This is what these sessions are for, right? This is why I'm streaming this. This is why I'm not making them into videos. This is why I'm streaming this, because we have a lot of rants and conversations over here. Thank you for the follow. Follows are anonymous. If you want to redeem the I just followed, you can do that. And thank you for the head pat and the hydrate and the stretch. I shall do that. So this isn't really hydrate. This is Oreo Coke 8. But you know what? Liquid is liquid for now. But yeah, if any of you do need to go rest, need to eat or whatever, then yeah, please do so. I apologize for raiding and running, but I really gotta stretch after all that. Hope. Yes, please do. Please do take care of yourself, Cress. I appreciate your raid. I appreciate you very much. And go follow Crescent, the alchemist. She does amazing retro streams, a lot of Sonic, a lot of Ninja Turtles, and such. And holy heck, the theme of her stream is something I wish I could reach one day. Like the level of theming that she has. So yes, go follow. She's awesome. And 5 stream streak. Holy heck! Thank you. That is amazing. Yeah, I just followed. I saw that. Okay. Yes. Thank you for the lurk. Okay. Yes. So yeah, TTRPGs. That's a big theme on this channel. A lot of the old games I play are old computer role-playing games. I'm currently doing a playthrough of the Baldur's Gate games. Baldur's Gate 1, we finished that one. We're now doing Siege of Dragonspear. And then after that, I'll be moving on to Baldur's Gate 2. And then a whole bunch of others. Fallout 1 and 2, Icewind Dale 1 and 2, Planescape Torment, whatever else there is out there. Neverwinter Nights, maybe, at some point. You know, all of the old good stuff that we have. Doing a lot of that. And ranting a lot about RPGs and their design. And how to play and run them. So yeah, if any of that sounds interesting to you, you are very welcome to stay. And right now we have some homebrew happening with Numenera and the Cypher system. Right? So for those who don't know, Numenera, a game set 1 billion years in the future on Earth, with a lot of detritus from magnificent civilizations all lying around, civilizations that have manipulated space and time and gravity and interstellar empires and blah and all that. And the humans currently are living in this world that, and they're just finding all the Numenera, all of these old technology things, and trying to use them as best as possible. And this game has a lot of good things in it, but I finally managed to articulate my biggest point of contention. So quick summary, let me see if I still have this, or if it was a flash in a pan. The basic system of Numenera is very simple and streamlined, right? You can still see the D&D roots in it. Monte Cook was a very prolific D&D designer. He was one of 3 people who spearheaded 3rd edition. So the system is very streamlined and simple, but there are, once you look into the character options and more nitty-gritty rules, there are a lot of details in it that add a lot of crunch and a lot of mental load. And the problem with these details is they don't have a system to support them. So my analogy here that I used, or my example that I used, is D&D spells. D&D spells also have a lot of details to them, a lot of crunch. But a lot of those details are embedded into a system, a template is probably also a good word, that every single spell has. So once you understand this template, this systemic framework, a lot of the details that spells have are just ticking boxes or going on a drop-down list, essentially, right? So, does it have a saving throw? Yes or no? Which saving throw is it? What is the range? What is the area of effect? Things like that. What is the casting time? Right, is another one. And so on. So those are many details, yes. But once you understand that these are the core details you're looking for, you can parse a spell description relatively quickly and immediately organize and sort away a lot of the details, right? And Numenera character options don't have that. They have a lot of details, but they don't have a solid system to help you organize these. Okay, I think that was the basic summary, and I think that's a good way to put this point. So what I'm trying to do here is that is the main thing I want to change. So I want to change the way character options work, these character abilities, and how many details they actually have and need. But I want to see if I need to create a framework with which to help players organize and parse these abilities and their details. Right? Okay. So, yeah, this page, we've been spending like 90 minutes on this page. Holy heck. But that's what happens when I stream, and that's totally fine, right? I'm not doing this to be super efficient in my design or so. I'm doing this so that we can talk and that I can rant. So please do, if you feel like it, please do ask questions or comment or anything. If anything is unclear or if anything interests you, please do ask. That's what I'm here for. All right. So this is just a summary or a list, really, of things I want to keep or list things I want to change. So yeah, what I just said. Details in character options. Going to need to check the VOD. So the first hour of the VOD is basically me just describing, summarizing the Numenera setting and the cipher system, right? But then, yeah, most of the rest is things I like and don't like and want to change. And character options, details and character options, plus framework. Right? And then another big thing I want to add that the game feels sorely missing is systems for exploration / travel, which are two closely related but different things. I've talked about this on another design stream at some point when I was talking about head crawls. That exploration and travel are two different but closely related things. But we'll get to that when I start discussing the motivating and enabling discovery. So for this point, I want to take a look at the game Mothership. So Mothership is an excellent game that uses negative design space. Oh my god, what happened to my voice there? That uses negative design space. What do I mean by that? So, very quickly, Mothership is a game and where the theme is you are trapped in space on some sort of space station or spaceship, right? Point is, you cannot just escape. You cannot just go out, right? If you go out, you die because you're in space, right? So you're trapped on there with a deadly monster, right? Think Alien, kinda, right? And so your goal is survive and somehow try to get rid of the monster one way or another so that you can then, keep living or travel home or wherever. You can't just leave the space station. You have to either make the monster leave or get rid of it or neutralize it somehow, right? That's the basic theme. Now, the idea in Mothership is this monster is deadly. You cannot just confront it. So the best way to deal with the monster is to hide, use stealth. However, there are no mechanics for stealth. Stealth is all like conversation. Because it is the central focus of the game, stealth is all about you have to negotiate with the GM. You have to say, okay, the GM says you are stuck in your crew quarters and you can hear footsteps, big heavy footsteps in the hallway outside. You go, crap. Can I hide under the bed? Right? And then can I hide in the locker? Bloody, bloody, blah. Can I climb up into the air vent? And that's when you start negotiating and narrating things out, talking things out, right? Now, this is really good design, and this is intentional design because the designers of Mothership said we don't want stealth. The main theme this game is about, we don't want it to come down to a single die roll. We don't want there to just be a stealth check, roll it, oh, you succeed, you go to the next scene, oh, you fail, you die, done. They don't want that. So they intentionally left this out, but that doesn't mean they didn't design mechanics. Instead, what they designed is a lot of other mechanics or other ways that you could deal with the monster. Right? I said the best way to deal with the monster is stealth. How do we know the best way is stealth? By having every other way tell us this is a really bad idea. Right? So you can have things like a combat system in the game where you can fight the monster. But the way the combat mechanics are set up, and the way the numbers are tuned, and the checks are designed and everything, if you fight the monster, you are going to die. 9 times out of 10. Best way to deal with Cthulhu? Run. Yeah. That's... Call of Cthulhu. Anyway, I have my own rants about that system. But yeah. So it's like, yeah, you could decide to fight the monster, but then we will unpack the combat mechanics, and the combat mechanics essentially say you die. You could run away from the monster. I don't know if that's the case, but that's how I would design it. You can run away from the monster, but then we use the chase mechanics, and the chase mechanics say you die. We can have, I don't know what other systems there might be, right? But the idea is all the other obvious options you have of dealing with the monster all have mechanics attached to them, and the mechanics say, this is a bad idea, try something else. And the final thing that remains is stealth. So all the mechanics in the game point toward stealth being the ideal way of playing the game. Right? And this is negative design space. This is something that is not often utilized, but when it is usually utilized extremely well, because the people who understand negative design space are also good designers who intentionally use it. Right? So, Dogs in the Vineyard also uses, I think, negative design space and so on. Basic idea, you die. Yes. So this is like, could I have a system or systems out there, some sort of framework where going out to discover things is the ideal course of action and is the one that is rewarded? So the way Mothership implements it is all stick, right? The stealth is the least worst option. I want to see if I can use carrots instead and be like, discovery is the best option. I don't know. I've never done this before. This is going to be the design exercise for this. But I would be, it's a challenge. Why not? Try to use negative design space here and do like a full carrot. It's like, okay, yeah, you could do different things here, you could do different things there. But discovery is the best course of action. I think how you reward things also softly force your players into a specific approach direction. Yes. definitely, but it can it you also have to be careful about that. So reward systems are a powerful motivator, definitely. But you have to see what other systems you have in the game and how the reward system is implemented. So I'm thinking of 3 examples here. The first example is D&D. In D&D, leveling up is visceral, right? When you level up, oh my god, you gain more hit points. And in early D&D, the first level up you gain has the potential of more than doubling your hit points. Right? Suddenly, you go from can die from a dagger stab to I can take 2 arrows to the chest and go on. Right? That's like, oh my god, that is huge. As a cleric, back in OD&D, if you go from level 1 to level 2, it's like, I can cast a spell now. Let's go. Right? Things like that. So leveling up in D&D, even nowadays, is extremely visceral. You get a whole bunch of abilities, you get more hit points, you get more toys to play with, your character becomes much more stronger, and you can face tougher opponents, etc., etc., etc. So XP is one of the main driving forces of the game. And the way the game is set up is that combat is the main driving force of getting XP, which has led to the rise of the murder hobo. That's a topic unto itself. But essentially, the reward system and the main gameplay loop are intertwined. The main gameplay loop is you go into a dungeon, you murder everyone who's there, you get all of the gold in there, and then you come out and you level up. Leveling up, getting XP and leveling up is part of the gameplay loop. It's integrated into the gameplay loop. And that's why people pay attention to it. And that's why it's always on people's minds. So when people do get XP, it's like we did something right. Let's try to choose a course of action that nets us more XP. This is why when you read a guide for like Baldur's Gate or something, I mentioned this. A guide for Baldur's Gate or like tips for Baldur's Gate is like, yeah, this NPC is no longer important. You can murder them and get 10,000 XP. Why wouldn't you do that? It's 10,000 XP, right? So that's the what happens when you integrate this kind of reward mechanic into your gameplay loop. So that's the first example, D&D. The second example, Blades in the Dark. Hold on. As an example, all XP are mentioned fight related. Yes, that forces your expectations, usable solutions a bit. Yes. Blades in the Dark also has an XP system. What are you rewarded for is what you will want to do. Kind of. This is the second example, Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark also has an XP system. You gain XP to make your character grow stronger. But your character, quote unquote, leveling up, there are no actual levels. You increase abilities individually, right? You increase skills by spending XP, or you and get additional abilities and such. But XP is only one part. Your personal character XP is one part in a large buffet of other. I got a BITT session tomorrow. I'm now logged in. I love BITD. It's one of my 3 favorite games of all time. 3 favorite role-playing sessions. Okay. All right. So yes, Blades in the Dark. So it does have an XP system, right? But it is not. It is divorced from the main core gameplay loop. And there are many other reward and growth systems in the game. We steal grease. Enough said. Which I guess in a Victorian setting can be very valuable. So I totally see that. Right, so there are many other growth and reward systems in the game besides XP. Right, so it's probably too complex to go over all of it right now, but essentially the main core gameplay loop in Blades in the Dark is you go on a score with your crew, and then on this score, you get stuff, you steal things, or you get information, or you assassinate someone, or whatever it is your crew is trying to accomplish, while losing stress because of, you're dealing with stressful situations. And then at the end of the score, you either succeed with what you wanted or not and go home, and then you go to downtime where you start recovering stress, build up your crew a little bit, do some politicking. And then after the rest and downtime, you go into a new score. So that's the basic gameplay loop of Blades in the Dark. XP doesn't factor into it at all. It doesn't. Or possible rewards and swords. Okay, yeah. But that is something also beside the core gameplay loop. So whenever you complete a score, what you're basically getting is you're getting coin, which is money. That is a really valuable resource because you can buy more downtime actions with it. You can make downtime actions more powerful, etc. So coin is something that is often on people's mind. You gain narrative bonuses, actually. Those are important, right? You maybe gain new territory for your gang because that's the type of score you went on. Oh, and territory for your gang is narrative, yes, but also has a mechanical effect. So that is now a character advancement bit. Maybe you increased your level of alliance with a certain other gang, other faction. That has gameplay mechanical effect. And so on and so forth. So there are a lot of other things that happen. New allies and political influence, yes. And then your crew also just gets experience just for going on scores. Hi Isaac, faction points. Yes, exactly. Right. So your crew can level up as a whole thing, but just by going on a score. And in downtime, you can train your character. You can get better equipment using downtime actions. So that is also a way to improve your character. So what the heck do you need XP for? Nothing really? XP is a nice to have little bonus. It is not as integral as, for example, in D&D. So getting XP, and the way you get XP in Blades in the Dark is when you roleplay your character. When you put in their background, or their personality, or their trauma, or whatever. If those things come into play, then you get XP for doing that. But two things make this very difficult. The first is that is a little side system tucked away in a little corner by itself. So it's very easy to forget. And you do this at the end of a session, not when it happens. So it's not like, oh, I roleplay my character and I bring in their cultural background, blah, and then I do this whole thing during the scene. And then at the end of a session, you're like, wait, did you roleplay your character? And you have to think back, did I? Right? Yeah, I guess I did. Maybe. Do I get a point of XP for that? Huh? Right? So, and this is an example of how XP very clearly does not drive play into a certain direction. All right? So a reward system can be tucked away in its little corner and not really influence the gameplay, or it can be integrated into the core gameplay loop. Numenera is an interesting case, or the cipher system is an interesting case, because the cipher system is effectively, yes, so XP serves two functions. XP is the meta currency. You can spend XP to reroll a die, or you can spend certain amount of XP to grow your character, to advance the character. You have to pull the levers of your character to make these happen. Yes, you have to remember that this XP system exists. Then you have to remember to roleplay your character. And then at the end of the session, you have to remember to check for XP, which is also sometimes forgotten, right? And then while checking for XP, you have to remember that you roleplay your character and convince everyone at the table that you did roleplay and that merits a point of XP. So it has a lot of failure points, and that's why it doesn't really do much. I found that rewards really could be nice stories to walk through. Yeah, it depends on how you implement them a lot of the time, right? So Numenera XP is definitely a nice thing to have, but so the game does tell you reward characters or reward players for XP when they discover things. Don't reward them XP for fighting. Don't reward them XP for overcoming challenges. Reward them XP for discovering new things, making awesome discoveries, etc. Okay, nice, but then it just kind of leaves you there, right? So a lot of it is up to GM interpretation, GM fiat. Does the GM think this was a discovery? And it kind of forces the GM to plan out, okay, I have this big adventure, and then at the end of the adventure, they will discover this thing. And when they discover it, oh, it's going to be so awesome, and the story is going to be so cool. And then the players don't actually do it because they're players, and you can't force a story onto players without railroading. And then they don't really make the discovery, and then it's like, I guess they don't get the XP, huh? Right? So it's a very, very fragile system that relies a lot of GM interpretation, and there's the GM winging things. Right? There's no real guidance. But that's not the biggest problem. I agree that XP should be given when things happen, but psychologically, you want to end the session with reliving the best moments of the night so people remember them clearly and think positively about the session. Yes, it is a... Yes. I figure that is what it was trying to do. And this system comes from Powered by the Apocalypse. Powered by the Apocalypse has the same kind of idea, where at the end of the game session, you relive, you summarize the what you did this session, and then you go through the same kind of checklist. Did I roleplay my character? Did this and that aspect come into play? Get a point of XP. But Powered by the Apocalypse is a much simpler system than Blades in the Dark. And this XP check is the only way to grow your character, as opposed to all of the other systems that exist in Blades in the Dark, right? So you are forced not to forget this XP check at the end of a session in Powered by the Apocalypse. Otherwise, your characters don't grow. Otherwise, the sessions don't lead anywhere, mechanically, right? So it works in Powered by the Apocalypse because of the relative simplicity of the system. But it doesn't quite work in Blades in the Dark because there's so many other things happening, so much other noise, really. On the XP system, only are mentioned when the fights happen in D&D book, but I think how hard a social encounter or trap was hard to guess without context or work off from. Milestone only works for so long. Yes. I don't know. I haven't read the D&D books that carefully, but a lot of XP is tied to combat. I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I only know in 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, there were XP values tied straight to the monsters. So when you read a monster stat block, right, you had all the combat stats and abilities and blah, 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 and also an XP value. That was a fixed part of a monster, which is just saying, you fight this if you kill this monster, you get this XP. Right? That was hard integrated. I don't know how it is now in 5th edition. I haven't bothered to check it enough. But yeah, and then for social encounters and such, it's like, then you suddenly have to say, oh no, wait, but also actually XP is for this. Right? And then you start to muddy your systems. Where was I? Let me quickly make this point before the ad hits, and then I have to go to the bathroom, etc. So in Numenera, yes, XP for discovery, awesome, nice, but it's all GM interpretation and winging it and fiat. But there's also GM intrusions. GM intrusions are when the GM thinks, oh, wouldn't it be cool if something like this happened right now? That drives the story in an interesting direction, but might be detrimental for the players. Let me give you an XP to soften the blow. So it's like, oh, you jump over the chasm, but you drop this item down the chasm. Wouldn't it be cool if the story went this way now? If you agree to that, here's an XP for you. And that becomes the major source of XP in the game. The absolute major source of XP, where the whole discovery aspect gets completely forgotten. Right? So it's because you have this other system that the XP reward system no longer works to incentivize and drive the play toward discovery. Okay. The ad is about to hit. Chaosium makes sense in that if you use an ability in-game, you check, and then at the end of the session, you try to roll higher. Yes, exactly. Every time you use an ability, you mark it, and then at the end, you see if it levels up. Yes. That is not a bad system. And that system actually came up quite a bit in like the early 2000s in a lot of indie RPGs as well. Okay. Oh yeah, I need to head and I've been sitting here for 3 hours. I need to head to the bathroom, holy heck. So let me switch to be right back. I will be back in a couple of minutes. Go have a drink and a stretch as well if you need to, and then I will be back afterwards and continue. All right, see you then.
Endure. In enduring, grow strong.
Okay. I didn't pause it in time, so I didn't want to exit this whole thing. All right. I'm back. Ooh, right. Um, I had a couple of ideas. For some systems. Thank you. Um, that deal with hold on. A new thought just barged its way into my head and I lost track. Dealing with some of the things in the game, especially the advancement and such. So, okay. Let me do one first. One of these thoughts first. Another bit of detail is like when you have a cipher in the game, ciphers also have a level that kind of sort of determines how strong they are or what they can affect in the world. Except when you roll for the level, it's very arbitrary. It's like some ciphers have a level of 1d6, some ciphers have a level of 1d6 plus 1, some ciphers have a level of 1d10, some ciphers just have a fixed level. Like, does that really add to the game? Does that really make the game better by having all of that in there? I highly doubt it. You could have complexity in another area instead. Okay, so that was the one point. The other point was I've been thinking, so yes, my biggest point of contention was that a lot of the details in this game are not supported by systemic frameworks. But also, I'm seeing a lot of role-playing flavor, role-playing guides and prompts in the text, in the rulebook, that just stays as a prompt that doesn't go anywhere, right? So, and this is all sorts of things. If you pick a descriptor, let me make sure I'm not getting this wrong. Yes, if you pick a descriptor, part of every descriptor description, right, the entry in the book for each descriptor is initial link to the starting adventure. And then it gives you 4 possible reasons why you would join this initial adventure. It's serviceable, I guess, but it kind of sort of assumes that there is already a fixed first adventure that everyone knows about and can pick for. And a lot of these are written in the style of you are joining a party. Meaning all the other characters are already in a party and you join them. Except everyone picks one of these initial links. So everyone joins a party that already exists? What? Right? It's a bit... It's a cute idea, but that's all it stays. It's like this half-baked. It feels half-baked. And then for every focus, you have a relationship with a specific other PC, right? It's a connection. Choose, again, you get 4 to pick from, or you can use them as inspiration. Except here as well, it's just like, okay, so your focus might help determine how you relate to other people or how you relate to this other PC specifically, right? Maybe something happened in your shared past, which then kind of assumes that you had a shared past with this PC, which might not mesh with the initial link to the adventure that you picked earlier, right? It's all just bits and pieces flowing around. Again, bits and pieces floating around. Powered by the Apocalypse did similar, but they were all a bit different. Yes, they do similar things, but it's more integrated. than in here. And one of the and it runs on a framework. That's the important thing, right? In Apocalypse World, you have history, which is a value you give with your how your connection with certain other PCs is, and this value can be checked in a die roll, right? So there are other systems tied to it, reward systems tied to it, mechanical systems tied to it, etc. In this is all 100% flavor, except when it's not, right? So you have, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you had your initial link to the adventure be this? Oh, wouldn't it be cool if you had a relationship to another PC be this? Oh, wouldn't it be cool if this detail were to suddenly appear out of nowhere, right? And some of these PC connections are mechanical. Some of them are, right? It's like, oh, this character disrupts your powers somewhat. If you use your powers while near them, the difficulty is increased by 1. Which is like, okay, that's very interesting. But that is 1 out of 4 suggestions for 1 focus out of like 50. Right? So it's like 0.5% of all of these things have some sort of weird mechanical effect all of a sudden, and the rest are all just flavor that doesn't go anywhere. Right? This ties into the whole crunchy details without system that I talked before. And then the type has your connection to the world, which again, don't know where it comes from. And more importantly, it has how does your character actually advance? How does your character become stronger? And it has like this is a whole, this is 1.5 pages. 1.5 pages of text talking about where do your powers come from? How do you get stronger? Right? And if you're playing a glaive, for example, which is the warrior type, maybe it comes from intensive training. So the way you advance, this is 2 paragraphs of text talking about advancement, means you need to train and practice constantly, right? And when you gain additional abilities and such, it represents this and that. Or maybe you have inborn traits, right? Maybe you are testing your limits. Maybe you're finding out what you can do. Or you have biomechanical modifications. You have to find various gadgets and find various things and implant them into your body in order to become stronger. There are like a whole bunch of, this is a lot of text talking about these things. There's a lot of pages, a lot of real estate in the rulebook devoted to this. And it's the only place devoted to this. None of this matters. None of this comes up. If you actually want to become stronger, if you actually want to advance your character, you just spend some XP. You just spend a couple XP and say, okay, I have more might points now, done. Like, and this is the absolute divorce between narrative and mechanics that I was talking about all the way in the beginning of the stream. Yes, oh, that's it? Yes, that's it. Right? So it's like, oh my god, you're reading through all of the character creation, and it's like, oh, I can play a glaive, and I can have, oh, I like the biomechanical modifications. I like slowly building myself up to a cyborg, right? This futuristic sci-fi, science fantasy cyborg, and oh, these abilities can really fit. This looks really cool. Oh, and I can have this kind of focus, and that means, you know, I have this kind of relationship to the fellow characters, right? Maybe I have bears a halo of fire, and my connection is I accidentally burned one of the PCs once. Oh, isn't that a cool background, you know? And that's it. That's all. That's where it stays. It stays in the background. Heck, even D&D backgrounds have mechanical impact. In the updated 2024 version of D&D, they have even more impact, right? In Numenera, it might as well not exist. Might as well not be a thing. So I'm. This is where I think a lot of wasted potential is in the game, and things that I want to try and integrate with mechanics, because this is my style. Type of game I like to play, the type of game I like to design, the type of game I want to see, where you have narrative considerations and aspects, and you have some sort of mechanical framework that prompts you to put these, to actually pay attention to these narrative things, right? Because we're playing a role-playing game, Oh, this is both. It's role-playing and game. So, yeah, that's the other big thing. So, systems for including / prompting narrative aspects. Narrative character aspects. Let's go with that, character aspect. Right, so one idea could be that you don't advance your character unless you have some sort of downtime, right? You're in a safe community, maybe your own community, and you have some sort of downtime. And depending on what you do, right, it's like, oh, I'd use training. Okay, then you spend downtime training. Or you have biomechanical modifications. Then it's like, okay, I found these things. Let me implant them into myself, right, during downtime. And so on, right? So this is a system where you have to pay attention and are prompted to include these narrative aspects into game mechanical considerations. Okay. So systems for more system community building. This is a big one. This is probably, if I do follow through and really get to this point at some point in the design of this is the big one. This will be one of the main focal points. So the idea, right? So the gameplay loop, the new gameplay loop. I swear I can write gameplay loop. Right, will be community time, which might include things like something goes wrong in the community, or we want to expand our community in this direction, we want to build this thing or develop this thing in our community. What do we need, right? Then travel out plus discovery, right? To grab the early example, oh, our water purification system is broken. We need a new water chip. Fallout. Then you go out and find a water chip, and then you come back, and then you fix the thing, and all is well and good. So, and then come back. Oops, come back plus growth. This is the high level gameplay loop, right? Hey. So, and then when you come back, you're in the community again, and then you have some community, right? Growth, downtime, essentially. So a little bit like Blades in the Dark in this case. And then you run your community things, and then something new comes up in the community, and then you say, okay, let's head out again. And then, you know, we do this. Mirage went out to find her sister. How successful is up to debate. Yeah. Like, you're not guaranteed success. You might never find a water chip, but maybe you'll find something else or learn something and then come back and try to use that. And that would promote that being when you level after integrating more into the community. Wait, that would promote that being when you level. So, like, when you level up, you are also integrating into the community more? Is that what I'm... Oh, as the community grows, you do too. Yeah, okay, fair. Yeah, so it could be, I want to train, but we don't have the training facilities. We need to build them first. But if you want to build the training facility, well, we need materials and we need this thing. Okay, let's head out, right? And then you discover this combat AI from 5 million years ago. And it's like, maybe we can use that. And then you come back, and then you can build your training hall, and then you can train and level up. Yeah. You found the chip. The vault was raided in the meantime. No! Don't talk to the water merchants. Basically. But yeah, that's Fallout. I'm gonna stream that at some point. That is definitely gonna happen. So okay. Yeah, so you can have that as well. And that really puts the... This is fun, but I have to go lurk. Yes, of course. I don't think I'm gonna do any proper design today. This was just more of a high level concept session. Have a great stream. Thank you, and thank you for the lurk. Thank you for dropping by. But yeah, this was more of a high level concept session and more understanding more what I like about the system, what I don't like about the system, what I want to keep, and what I want to change and how. So we have this bit, right? Over here, we have this bit over here. And then, yeah. So if I remove the combat system, what that actually means is other systems have priority. Right? So things like the exploration and travel system have priority over a combat system. A combat system might be nice to have, but it is extremely specific, and it is specific in a way that is not really relevant to the game. Exploration or travel, really relevant to the game. Overcoming large challenges, really relevant to the game. Right? Some sort of skill challenge system where you have a big thing like disarming a complex trap, opening a vault door, deciphering and understanding, analyzing an old computer, right? Things like that. Those are more relevant than a combat system, right? So it's essentially a priority list of what systems do I want to develop, and the combat system is very far on the bottom. I like a travel system because it constantly referred to when you explore. Yes. Though, again, like I said, exploration and travel are actually two different things. Let me quickly explain. So exploration is you don't know what's out there. Have a good night. Got to go. All right. Thank you for hanging out, and thank you for being here. And I hope you enjoyed my rantings, and thank you for the good discussions. It's always nice to meet someone else who has played RPGs. Well, in your case, far longer than I have, but yeah. Some TTRPG systems have the travel through the map barely mentioned. Yes, even though that is sometimes a big thing in the game.
used to be a thing in older D&D, hex crawling and traveling and such. So the difference between exploration and travel. Exploration is you don't know what's out there. You might have a vague idea of what you're looking for or which rough direction you're going, but you don't know what you will encounter on the way and what you will find on the way. So that becomes exploration, right? You're just kind of taking it one step at a time, one hex at a time. If you're using hex crawling, right, you go into this hex and you discover things, and then you go into the next hex, you discover things, and you're like, oh, there's a dungeon here. Let's go into the dungeon, right? And then you have discovered the dungeon through exploration and are now deciding to do something with it. Travel, on the other hand, is very clear. You know where you are going. And you know exactly how to get there or which way to travel. You might not know exactly what awaits you on the path. Duh, right? Travel is often bears surprises. But you know exactly where you're going. You know how to get there. So it could be things like you are going to a different city and this city is just down this road. Sure, it'll take us a week and we have to go through a scary forest, but if we just follow this road, we will get to the other city. Done. That is travel. You are not exploring new territory. You are just traveling along the road. Or you're doing things like in The Hobbit, right? The Bilbo and the dwarves are traveling to the Lonely Mountain. And at some point, they come out of the forest and they see the Lonely Mountain in the distance. They're like, that is where we're going. We don't know what expects us in the lands between here and the mountain, but we can see the mountain in the difference. If we just keep it in front of us and keep walking, we will get there, right? And we don't care about things that are lying on the wayside. And that is also travel, right? Or something like you're on a ship and you say, if we just head due east for 3 weeks, we will get to the coast and then we can follow the coast to the port. Done. Right? So all you're doing is just having your compass there, due east for 3 weeks, whatever. You don't know what will await you on the ocean. You might get attacked by kraken. You might run into pirates, blah, whatever. But you're not exploring the ocean. You're not trying to find small islands or whatever. You're just heading in that one direction, and then at some point you will hit your goal. So that's the difference between travel and exploration. Now, both obviously need the same basic resources. Both need maps, for example. Both need some background lore for the world. So both need like a way for you to figure out where the party is while they are traveling. But the systems, the mechanical systems you use for them differ. Right? Plot twist, the mountain's elaborate illusion casts over a giant sinkhole across the map. Oof. I mean, yeah, why not? Why not? Right? So that's the difference between exploration and travel, and you use different mechanical systems to run these things. You use the same baseline info, right? You can even use baseline info like, if you are in this forest, you will get attacked by magical creatures because a crazy mage lived here once who experimented on the animals. Okay, whether you're exploring the forest or traveling through it, doesn't matter, right? You will likely get attacked by magical creatures. So you can even use things like this, right? Random encounter tables and so on. That would be a surprise to walk into. Okay. But the framework, the mechanical framework, the procedure is different. Right? Okay, so that's what I mean is difference in exploration and travel. And I may need both. Usually at some point you need both if you have that as a center point on the camp. Right. What time is it? It's almost 3 p.m. I think I have gotten everything I can get for now. The rest would start to be looking at, because a lot of the changes I'm making are character options changes. If I want to continue this, I will have to start looking more, like actually start reading the character options again. I've read through them, but it was like a couple of years ago. So I would have to read through them again. I would have to look at what kind of system might support this. I would have to look at what frameworks I will have to design. So that is a bit deep for me now. But I think this is a good design goal statement. Right? Very important when you're starting to design something, you must have a design goal statement. It's a term I just made up. I don't work in the industry. I don't know what kind of word terms they actually use officially. A design document, I guess. But you have to state your design goal. And this is basically this and a lot of the other analyses I've done on Numenera and a lot of other thoughts are the design goal. So I do think that for right now, I am done. Yeah. Yeah, if I do continue this and go more into designing more concrete systems, I would want to do that on a fresh stream. Also, I've been talking and thinking for almost 4 hours about this. And it's hot. I'm sitting here and just sweating and uncomfortable. So I kind of, yeah, I'm gonna call it. Thank you for the head pat. Okay. All right. I sometimes found the thought interesting how small details can impact the world building. Oh yeah, sometimes you find just some small thing and then you start deconstructing it and start building upon it, and then it just it just grows. Yes. Okay. What do? I look for someone to raid. Okay, this is definitely something I need to have a post-it for stream start procedure, for when I get raided procedure, and then for stream ending procedure, so that I don't have to like keep remembering and then keep forgetting things. So go to Twitch, see who's online. Hopefully a bunch of people are. Yeah, actually. Let's see here. All right. Let's go say hi to Bonnie. Bonnie, who is also a VTuber, a vampire VTuber, who's currently playing heavily modded Minecraft, which I guess, fits the theme of kind of a fantasy role-playing-ish universe, building stuff. I guess. Okay. Like, I see a horse. True. You could also say hi to Seahorse. Let's go say yeah, okay, we've raided Bonnie a couple times. Let's go say hi to Sea. Let's do that. Okay, good point. Seahorse, who is currently playing. Let me shout out Bonnie in any case, because Bonnie is awesome. I think that's the name. Yes, okay. But yeah, let's go say hi to Seahorse, who is currently playing Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, one of the Yakuza games. Like how the common aces spell effects would influence the town and surrounding. Ah! Yes. Okay. Yeah, let's go say hi to Seahorse, who is currently losing it because of something in the game. All right. Rate the last Seahorse. Yes. Who's not actually a seahorse. But yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you again, Cress, for the raid. That was awesome. And yes, happy weekend to everyone. Happy time zone. I should be back on Tuesday with more Baldur's Gate 1. So continuing the TTRPG theme. All right. Yeah. Other than that, I do hope to see you again soon. Take care, stay hydrated, and bye-bye.